Let's stay with SONA and focus on South Africa's education, the state of our education. Let's hear from education expert, Professor Mary Metcalf, who joins us now. Professor, thank you so much for your time. Annika and I were going through the State of the Nation address earlier this morning, and we're surprised that education was mentioned, but it was very little that was mentioned about education. Were you surprised?
No, not at all. But I was also very excited by what the president did say. Why I wasn't surprised is because the detail of what's going to happen in education will be taken forward in the budget speeches of the relevant ministers. But if I look at the narrative of what was woven through the speech, for me, there were three main themes. And he started off with inequality. He mentioned that education is one of the framers of our inequality in terms of employment and unemployment. And then under that theme, he made three very important points. He spoke about the importance of school infrastructure and an innovation to introduce a special purpose vehicle and it being trialed in 2 provinces. That is crucial because school infrastructure is a critical component of inequalities in education. He then went to the youth employment scheme, and that 500,000 job opportunities have been provided for young people to work in the education sector, and that this is the largest initiative ever. Now, that is something that has succeeded more than even I had hoped. And the third thing he spoke about in terms of the relationship between education, employment, and the economy was the issue of placements of unemployed TVET graduates. And he said that there's going to be 10,000 TVET graduates who will be employed by April 2002. But he didn't stop there because there's 2 more points he made which I think are crucial. He spoke about the fact that the tax base provides the mechanisms that address inequality, education, health, and social grants, that this is what a state does as a public good for the country. And lastly, and I thought this was the cherry on the top, that it's not only a capable state that needs to deliver, but you also need civil society holding government to account, so that he is pushing towards a social sector summit, which will look at how we are doing in the social sector. So it sounds like it was just touching references, but in fact there's a strong narrative and it's consistent with the themes within SONA as a whole.
So it was about the quality of what he said, not the quantity of what he said. So from here on out, what needs to happen from government, from the private sector, from society in general, to ensure that education is dealt with in South Africa?
Well, let's take that at 2 levels. If we say society as a whole, I love the fact that in his section on the importance of civil society, he said, we have mechanisms in schools like school governing bodies. Let's make sure that they work more effectively. Let's support our schools through the participation and the real responsibilities that are located at school level. And that must be applauded and it must be taken up, because school leadership struggles with all of the challenges that they face, and they cannot do that without strong community support. So that was one call to the nation. I think the other thing in terms of what government must do is that he has made very specific indications of those components of education fitting within the broad theme of SONA, where government must deliver. We know that the Minister of Higher Education and Training must report back to us about the placement of the TVET interns by April, which is soon. I'm looking forward to that. We know that there's a special purpose vehicle in this complex area of school infrastructure. I know that this is something we definitely need. It needs to work. And again, that's a government and the private sector partnership, which needs to be overseen by civil society. Organizations like Equal Education have played a very strong role in arguing for improved school infrastructure, such as Section 27. And we need to say, how is the special purpose vehicle working? How can we identify weaknesses? How do we monitor and suggest what needs to be done to improve? And the whole Youth Employment Initiative, which is being well managed from the Office of the Presidency, how can we make sure that this becomes not just a stopgap, but the sense of inclusion and purpose that it's giving young people is translated into long-term initiatives and opportunities for them to pursue careers on the basis of their experience.